And we are live with a new intro. We got there. Yes, look at me go.
Very crisp.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Wide World of Warhammer. With us today, we got the best battle report creator in Australia. I'm going to say it. I was going to say in New South Wales, but in Australia, I'm going to go all out.
Oh
Mr.
my!
Barnyard
Wow, what
Jack.
an intro! I'll take it.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing really well. Good to see you. Good to be back.
Good to see. Yes, good to be back as well. We're talking behind the stage about our overseas trips a little bit, but we're going to talk about Jack's overseas trip more than anything here today, and how he's gallivanting around Canada and living it all up and living the content creator's dream. I mean, visiting all the names and faces.
It was pricey, but it was worth it.
Absolutely, absolutely. In this global economy, everything's worth it. It was priceless, as some would like to say, right?
That's true. Well, that's yet to be seen. We shall see.
We shall see. We shall see.
Yeah.
So before I get ahead of myself, so Jack, for people who maybe have never heard of you or seen your beautiful face or your beautiful battle reports, who are you? And guess how long have you been in Warhammer universe for?
Okay, so I am Jack, Barnyard Jack. I run a channel called Barnyard Wargaming. We do pretty much mostly 40k content. I have dabbled in Sigma and things like that in the past, but I am a big 40k player. I've been playing for 13 years. I play mainly Eldar, and at the moment I play a lot of demons. And I am a New South Wales creator, a 40k content creator.
Yeah, absolutely. And he does a massive, amazing setup. So for people who've never seen his stuff, definitely highly encourage you to check him out. Like streams like twice a week and stuff like that. We'll do plugs and stuff at the end, so get all the juicy
plugs.
details. All the plugs. But yeah, obviously Eldar main, but don't hate him just yet. It's okay. He's a good guy.
I play demons too. I got both sides. I just stay well away from Imperium.
Yeah, the worst. The worst. Don't check my painting desk at all. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah. So today, the main topic of today, obviously talk to yourself. As I know on the previous show yesterday, I talked to you impromptu. It was like a Jack saved the day and joined the show late. But we're going to talk about your Canadian adventures. So, Jack, tell us. So we saw on all over Facebook you posting and with all these Z celebrities or A-tier celebrities of the Warhammer universe. But what was this journey? Tell us. Why were you in Canada?
So I had another reason to go there. I was learning French, which was the main kind of reason that I was going to Canada. But when you fly from Australia to Canada, literally on the other side of the planet, you can't just go there for one reason. I wanted to make it into the biggest trip I've ever done. So I kind of splurged a little bit, and I extended my trip just a little bit longer so I could hit up Miniwargaming, Scary from Scardcast, and of course Play-On in Vancouver, which even just to be on was an absolute honor. They really kind of allowed me to get on is a good way of saying it. It was really nice of them to give me the opportunity to do it. So yeah, it worked out really well. I stayed in mainly Montreal for about 4 weeks. And then experiencing the cold. If you're an American viewer, then this won't apply to you. But when I left here, it was 30 degrees. And when I landed in Montreal, it was minus 25. So it was a change in 55 degrees or something like that. It was ridiculous. And then, I hit up Toronto in Welland, saw Niagara Falls, and then went over to Vancouver and then came home. It was good.
Look, so how long were you overseas for? And while we're playing this presentation, I'll be sure to show some videos and photos and stuff like that, and we'll be sure to refer to them. So don't stress. But how long were you in Canada for?
It was about 5 weeks. The main part, as I said, Montreal. Then in Toronto, aside from all the days of traveling, just while I was at the bunker for 4 days, 4 nights kind of thing. And then immediately after that, I went over to Vancouver. I had a free day in Vancouver to kind of explore and see what I was doing and go do all the fun stuff. But I only had the 1 day spare because the other 2 days I actually spent at the Play-On studio. And I was there for about a day and a half, 2 days before catching my flight home. So it was kind of really condensed in the end part of the trip. But yeah, as for the mini wargaming side, I mean, no one wants to hear about the non-Warhammer side. That was just like hanging around, seeing sights and experiencing the really, really cold. But in the Toronto area, I stayed at the bunker for 4 days, 4 nights. I was in the Orc suite, which was really cool. I think it's the only hotel I've ever stayed in that has die written on the wall, and it's actually okay. So that was awesome. And I met the whole team, and even Scary, really, really nice. He drove me himself out to Niagara Falls, and we had dinner together. I learned a lot of secrets, and then we drove back and we filmed a battle report. Finished very late. You can see that one. That one's out already on his channel. That was easily the closest game that I played the entire time, and we finished at like 11:40 at night. It was a lot of Warhammer, and it was good. About 4 days there, 3 days Vancouver, and then I was home. So.
Yeah, amazing. It sounds like an awesome trip. And I know as well, like while you're in Montreal, like you played in the local community though, right?
I did. So there's a store in the part of Montreal that I was staying in. The place was called Beaubien, and around that area they had 2 stores. One was bigger than the other. The other one was kind of like just starting out with a lot of newer players, smaller space. But the one in there was a place called Abyss Boutique, and that was huge. It had like a massive above ground section that was like ground level, where you could like play card games and board games and stuff. And they had a restaurant in there that always filled with people. And then underneath they had a massive like basement area that had probably 30 tables, all new terrain, exactly like what you're showing now. 30 tables of stuff, like all this new terrain, and it was great. People were there all the time. I think I played about 13 games there. And I had a pretty good track record, I would say. Let's just say the first part of my trip, really good track record for wins. Second half of the trip, not so good.
Yeah. Just beating up all the scrubs in Canada, right? Warming yourself up, and then you face the actual...
off camera, many scrubs were beaten. On camera, let's wait for the videos to find out. But not a great track record.
Oh, well, that's too great. You got to warm up though, right? And so, so just to expand more, so we absolute Queensland hero Jack Tinning. So, what's this Orc suite I've missed about? So, obviously the Miniwargaming bunker. It seems about all Warhammer. Like, can you expand more upon that?
Yeah, so I think they said about 5 years ago they built the bunker, and you actually know a bit of knowledge on this too. I think it was a flower shop as well, but I know it used to be a cinema. And the bunker now that they've like refurbished everything and made it into their own space. Essentially, when you rock up, if you stay there, you're essentially staying in a new hotel. They have quite a lot of new stuff there, new bathrooms and everything as well. And you can choose whichever kind of room you want. There's like an Imperial suite. There's it's called the Barracks, which is like a bigger room, like loads of space for kids. And then there's a Sigmar based room, and then there's a 40K based room, which happens to be Orcs as well. And between the Imperial suite and the Orc suite, aside from the fact that I didn't want to spend even more money on an Imperial suite, I just wanted a normal room. You got to choose the Orc one over the Imperial one. I don't want the Imperial room. I stayed in the Orc suite, and it was cool. It was really good. Smaller little place, and it had like a little bunk bed in there, but plenty for little old me. That place is huge. The stuff that you see on the Miniwargaming YouTube channel, where they have like showcasing 150,000 points of models, et cetera, et cetera. Like they launched a video today, actually. They film everything for those videos in like, it's called the Barracks, I think, or like a big part of their studio. Then they have like 5 or 4 like individual little office spaces on the second floor. They have all the hotel rooms on the second floor. And on the first floor, they have like 3 or 4 different bathrooms, a room just for mats. They have a massive corridor filled with Warhammer. They have a basement within the basement because it was an old cinema. And there is so much stuff in there. I had the full tour. They have like 5 editing like studio rooms for filming videos in, and then they have like, you know, back rooms on top of that where they do all their new 3D printing setup. And yeah, the place is huge. Like the front of the building doesn't seem that big. And when I first arrived, I was like, oh, is this the right place? Am I in the right spot? But yeah, as you go in, the front, by the way, is literally its own 40K shop. Like it's its own Warhammer store that's run by a young guy. And then, yeah, behind the scenes, they have like, the building just goes on and on. Like it's just really long. And it was great. It was really cool. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so on the screen now for people who are watching, I've got a photo of the front, and I've been scrolling through the photos and stuff like that. So I think the photo you have with Matt, so one of the co-owners or founders of Miniwargaming, is actually that's the 3D printing room there we have.
Yeah, that's
on
one
screen.
of the 3D printing rooms.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
Yeah, they have
Wild,
like 3. It's insane. But yeah,
I think, and then with the photo here with Josh, if I remember correctly,
it is Josh.
so,
yeah,
it's Josh. Look at all that old school knowledge just coming back. It's just like riding a bike again. So just the photo of the corridors, and you see it's a massive Tesseract vault. So for the scale of things, it's incredible. So I've always seen
the amount of stuff they have is like unparalleled. It's enormous. 16 years of collecting. So
incredible. And like
when people come to my studio, they're like, "Oh my god, this is so much stuff. There's stuff everywhere." And then I go to their place in like the bunker, and my stuff is just like nothing. It's like it's almost nothing in comparison. So, yeah.
Feel insignificant. It's amazing to see, and maybe something to aspire to. Maybe one day, right? Maybe one day we'll see.
Absolutely,
see how it goes.
Well, they've really built an empire. Like meeting all of the team was quite a surreal moment. Like the when I first kind of got there, I met Josh, and Josh is the person that does all of the kind of logistics for people who stay. He books all the rooms and things like that. And he was really nice. Like he's one of the nicest people there. Massive shout out to Josh. If he ever sees this, he is like fantastic. I had so much fun with him. And we played a game together. That'll hopefully be out soon. Of his knights versus my Eldar. And he was fantastic. And over the course of the day, I ended up meeting a few more people. And slowly, over the 4 days, I kind of acquired my photos. I don't want to impose on people to be like, hey, can I please have a photo? So slowly I was collecting them like Pokemon. But I remember when I met Dave, Dave and Matt were in their own little studio that they were filming something. And Dave kind of opened the door and like walked out into the hallway as I was going the other way. And I was carrying something, getting ready for a game. And I kind of like looked up and it was him. And, I've watched him on YouTube for like 16 years. So I was kind of a little bit like starstruck. And I just kind of went, oh, hey. And he just looked at me like, hey, Dave. And I was like, I know. And that was it. And he's like, yeah, so good. You are? And I was like, oh, sorry, right, Jack. Yeah, hey, how you going? And had this conversation with him. But it was like surreal. Later on, like after filming all these games and things, I was standing in the studio, like one of the studios, and I had like Josh, Luca, Matt, Steve, and Dave all standing around the table, just like around this 140K table, just standing there, and Scary as well, just standing there and chatting to me. And it was kind of like I was participating in the conversation, but then I kind of like took a step back for a moment and went, wait a minute. These are some of the biggest faces in all of the Warhammer industry that I've been watching for more than a decade on YouTube. I've just flown around the entire world and now I'm seeing them all in person. It was like really just strange. So it was awesome.
You had to pinch yourself a little bit. Like, is this real? Like, am I in a dream or whatever? Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I did that exact thing. And Josh kind of looked at me like, "You all right, buddy? How's it going?" But it was awesome. I have to say, like, Josh was the nicest, I think. Or Dave, those two from the Miniwargaming team. Those two are so incredibly lovely. Matt, he's a bit more focused on his business, I think. Not to say that he's not like really, really nice. I had a lovely time chatting with him, but obviously I don't get as much time to speak to him. I don't get to play a game against him. And Luca was really nice too. Not to play favorites, and because everyone actually, as I was going, I collected dice. I collected dice along the way. I got a Team Canada dice from a guy in Montreal. I have to talk about him in a second. But I got a Luca dice, which is like a taco cat. I got dice from Scary as well. I got Art of War dice as well, which was really cool. But yeah, not to play favorites, but I think Dave and Josh were my favorites from the Miniwargaming team. And then Scary, I think, was my favorite for the entire trip. He made my entire trip what it was. Yeah, as a bit of a backstory, right? When I first kind of arrived, I had been speaking to Scary for maybe like 2 years, on and off through Instagram, and I'd asked him advice on the channel and things like that before, because he's been there, he's done all of that stuff before, and he was kind of like very supportive, very, very nice, and I've always been told by everyone that's ever met him that he's a gem of a human. And when I got there, he kind of didn't really know who I was, which was a little bit to me like, oh, but I've been talking with you and you've seen my stuff, so how do you not know who I am? But as I got to know him, I realized that, with a family and running his own business full time and doing a whole bunch of other stuff as well, and contracting as well for Miniwargaming, he just doesn't have any time. Like, this man runs on so many coffees a day. He frequents the Tim Horton drive-through. He doesn't have time to watch YouTube. He doesn't know YouTube videos in general, really. He just makes his own stuff. So, which is fair. So after he got to know me, and we played like a game together, and then we went to the falls, and then we came back and we played probably one of the greatest games I've ever played in my life. He was the most supportive by like a mile. He was so nice. He gave me a bunch of dice. He gave me a bunch of shout outs. He spoke to me on Instagram and he wished me a safe travel home. Like, he was just a gem. He's so nice. Anyone who gets the chance to go to the bunker, yeah, definitely go on. I think it's a Tuesday and a Wednesday that Scary's there, because he is incredible. He was the greatest. So.
Oh, what a guy! What a guy! I've always heard positive stories about Mr. Ridvan himself, and well, it just reiterates that. So I guess so. Obviously, you just talked about how nice everyone was. So the stereotype that all Canadians are nice, I guess it sounds sort of rung true for at least Welland, Ontario.
You say that, but every single Canadian that I said that to, they were all like, "Who says we're nice? Like, who says that? That's a lie. I'm not nice. Go away, get out of my face." That's the natural response that I got from every Canadian. They're sick of the stereotype, apparently, that everyone knows that they're nice, but they were nice. So
yeah. Oh, well, this is stereotype. Well, sometimes there's a stereotype for a reason, but a very good reason, obviously. There.
Yeah,
so, amazing.
Absolutely.
Was it your first time to Canada, or had you been?
It was. Yeah, it was my first time to Canada. And kind of like my first time really traveling overseas on my own. I've done a few trips before, mainly around Australia and things like that on my own. But traveling for, like it's 28 hours or something from door to door, from Sydney to Montreal, on my own, and then being there for like 5 weeks on my own, just traveling around in a country. It was an interesting experience. Like, I wasn't really scared or nervous at any one point. I won't give away too many details. I was a little bit frightened in the Toronto area. Sorry, Toronto. But other than that, traveling was fine. And all of the Warhammer people are so nice. Like, even in Montreal where I was staying, and you meet up with all these people at the local club, and they're all just really nice. I did actually meet up with a subscriber of mine, John. Shout out to him. And he played 3 games against me, like one, and then I had like a little bit of time away, like a week away or so. In between, I actually went up to Quebec City, and we went north of there to Stoneham, and we did snowboarding for 3 days, which was awesome. You can't go to Canada and not snowboard. That's just a must-have. So, and I'm big on snowboarding. which, little known fact, I'm big on snowboarding. But yeah, then I played another 2 games against John, and he was just so nice. He gave me a lift to and from the store, and he versed my demons. The 2 second games that we played, he versed my demons with his Eldar back to back. Like, we played a game and then we just re-racked and went again with a slightly different Eldar list. And both times I got super lucky. Like, the poor guy, he shot me with like fire dragons, bright lances, everything under the sun into my great and clean one. And I think I passed like maybe 8 out of 9 or 7 out of 8 4-up and vulnerables. And he was like, well, what's the point? What's the point now?
Skill issue.
Yeah, exactly. Just roll forward, right? Yeah.
Easy.
And so I made a reel of that on the channel as well, which was just really, really fun. So shout out to him. He was so lovely. There was a bunch more as well, and I'm sorry for not naming all the names. Like, there was probably like 3 or 4 others that were really nice. One of them actually took me out to Macca's, with McDonald's for everyone else. Yeah, surprising to know, if you don't already know, I'm celiac. I'm gluten-free, and the Macca's in Canada actually specifies everything. They actually specify what they have in their food. The Macca's here in Australia, no, they don't do that. So for the first time in a long time, I actually had like some Macca's food that I could probably like actually eat. So that was good. And surprisingly as well, especially in Vancouver, they have a lot of food that is made specifically gluten-free. Like, I had essentially KFC, like fried chicken, which you normally can't have at all because it's all flour. I had that for the first time in like 8 years. I had that with Tack as well, from Play On. We literally were,
Nice.
In the studio just eating KFC, and I was like, "What is happening right now?" The best part of the day, meeting Tack, meeting the Play On crew, but eating KFC is pretty good. Yeah, but there was another dude in Montreal, Quentin. Shout out to Quentin. He was, I think, the nicest guy that I met in the Montreal area. He was a World Leaders player, and I kind of approached him on the first day and tried to chat with him, all in French, of course, and see what was happening and play some games. And eventually, we did get a game in against. I played Eldar into his World Leaders, and he was a massive Skari fan. And we actually had both like recently watched some videos from Skari where he details some tactics on how to slow down World Eaters. And I literally put infiltrators in front of his line so that he could not move. And he was like, "Oh, I see you're using the Skari tactics against me." And I was like, "Yeah, we both watch him. I'm going to do it." And he was so nice. He was the one who gave me a Team Canada dice. He's also a Drakari player. He had gorgeous Drakari models. And I got to see him later in the week, and he played some mean games. So yeah, shout out to him. He was great. So.
Just sounds like an amazing trip. Just like wholesale, like I know you just gone on and on. You can talk for hours about how great everything.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
I've been gas bagging.
It's okay. I understand. Look, you make your own content. I understand you like talking about things and you want to do stuff. It's completely understandable. So
sorry.
No stress at all. No stress. Everyone loves this. It's great. It's great to hear. So I guess the question I have for you. So was there any big differences you found? Like, obviously playing, I guess, in the Northern Hemisphere versus Southern Hemisphere. I assume you haven't played Warhammer internationally by comparison. Did you find it differently, like playing in Canada versus Australia?
Well, the language was interesting. I mean, the Quebecois French I tried at first, and I was like, "There's no way I'm doing this. Not a chance." The accent was so strong.
Yeah, sure. Can you expand on that? So when we hear Canada, it's like, what? They're English. Oh, sorry, like part of the Commonwealth. They speak English, right? But no, can you expand more about? So yes.
So they speak English. Region? They speak English everywhere, but in the Montreal area, over on the west side, they have a massive French culture. Even in all parts of Canada, that they explain pretty much everything in English and French. But in that area that I was staying in Montreal, they speak Quebecois French, which is so strong. It's like its own dialect. So, people warn Australians that learn French, and or I suppose all over the world, if you go there and you're trying to learn French and you speak English, their French isn't really French. It's basically a different language in and of itself. And so I tried to have some games in French, and it didn't really work out. It was too hard. So eventually I just ended up playing in English. But as for the games, it wasn't too different. I think really the biggest difference is the language. Otherwise, everyone's just a 40k player. The rules are the same. Everyone's reading in English there. Even the people who do play in like Quebecois, they speak French, but all of the rules and terminology is in English. Like they'll say like wounds or charge roll or something like that. Like I will make, and then they'll just change charge roll. So something like that. It's all explained in English, so it's actually not too hard to pick up. The games were about the same. Everyone was really nice. I think in the Montreal area, I found that most of the players weren't as competitive. I think if you're not an Australian and you come to Australia, you will probably be surprised at the level of competition, because I think Australia is really competitive. Our team came third. I think it was third last year for the World's Teams event. And then the year before we came first out of like 28 countries both times. And so, I know a lot of the Sydney area and the Sydney community of players and Canberra included, because we're so close. And people like Alex and Glezos, things like that, those people who lead Art of War, things like that. They are really good players, and I play against them often. So when I got to Montreal and I was just playing some competitive games, there's competitive terrain there, and people start playing competitive games. Most of the players, not great, I would say. Sorry, Canada, but yeah, need some practice.
Just beating on the Montreal scrubs. So that's all right.
I think I played about 13 games in Montreal, and I lost once. So and the only reason I think I lost that game was because I was playing Eldar against Chaos Space Marines, and we had about 2 hours to play the entire game, and his army was basically mostly melee. So I took a lot of chances just to rush the game along instead of like kiting him out behind walls, which basically just suicided my whole army into him. And then I obviously lost. The gamble didn't pay off. But we played the same matchup a little while later after the data slate, where CSM got changed. And a lot of his units were nerfed, but the units that he was running, like he wasn't running anything really OP. So he wasn't really changed. However, my army was, because Phantasm took a big hit. 12 fate dice went down to 6 fate dice. The second time round, it wasn't too hard.
yeah, that's all right. Oh, look, the elder player playing, oh no, stuff got nerfed.
Oh, no, my 12 fate dice down to 6 fate dice.
But yeah, I agree. Like,
on that topic, when I went, I took lists that were for everything, right? Like I had 2 armies in the one suitcase, and the way that I got them over there was I bubble wrapped everything individually. And some stuff was broken over time and fixed up, as I went. But it meant that the data slate changes skewed my list, and I didn't have any extra models to be able to do it. So like when I was playing some games with demons after the data slate change, which was literally just before I arrived at the bunker, and obviously play on as well, the data slate changes changed my lists, and I didn't have enough points for demons. So I had to borrow a couple of things, which made my list even worse than what it was. A few of these list, choices were not exactly like the most competitive. I took things that everyone would be comfortable with, like playing for fun, something that looks really nice for the channels. You got to have Scarbrand on a pile of skulls if you meet Dave. You got to have that. So, I took an all-comers kind of list, which meant that in some stages I was weaker, and other stages I was probably a bit stronger than I needed to be. But you can't really change it. I mean, I'm so far away from home.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
I can't do anything about it once I'm there. So,
well, I'm glad Miniwargaming have some models around, right? Like, I think I heard that they have a small collection, so I'm glad you're able to borrow some models.
A few. Yeah, a few.
Yeah, just
But it's nice to take
handful.
your own. Like they kind of expect you to show up with an army that is fully based and painted so that you can showcase your own models, not theirs. But naturally, when I explained to Josh, like I've already been here for 3 or 4 weeks, I don't have any other models. He was like, yeah, of course, we'll just give you some to tide you over, which was really nice of them. But I kid you not, I was in Montreal waiting for this data slate. I was checking every day, and you're just waiting for that data slate to drop because all of the rumors, the data slate's on its way. And when it dropped, it was like 3-4 days before I was gonna meet up with Scary. And my plan was I wanted to go over there with my Eldar list and have a chance to beat him. Like Alex knows Scary really well. Alex Inglezos, Mr. Greek. He knows him really well because they're both on Team Art of War. So when I met Scary for the first time, I was like, hey, how you going? Alex says hi. Put in your t-shirt order for Art of War. And he was like, oh, yeah, thanks. Forgot about that. Just like a nice kind of meetup of people that know each other from across the planet. And I really, really, really wanted to beat him. This is my one chance. I might never get this chance again. And like 3 days before, my army heavily nerfed, his army heavily buffed, Sky Splinter. They remove Phantasm essentially for me. They give it to his transports. I was like, you got to be joking me. Like I barely had a chance before, let alone now. What am I going to do now? So it was brutal, but it was a close game. No spoilers. I'm not going to say whether I won or lost. It was really close. Literally a point decided it. So
dun, dun, dun. Very exciting. So but yeah, so heading in, so you touched on there a little bit how you wanted to take lists which I guess tailored for various things. So was this something you did on incentive, or was this something you were told to do? So for maybe people who are going to Miniwargaming, want to record the battle reports, because obviously when you book there, you generally expect to film some reports like twice a day. I understand those, one in the morning, one in the evening, but feel free to elaborate on that more. So yeah, like it's just, were you told that you have to bring lists which fit a certain power level? Like, hey, take it around this sort of mark, or were you told, nah, take whatever you want?
So before I went, I was obviously chatting with Scary and then Miniwargaming and PlayOn. I think I'll go one at a time. So for Miniwargaming, I contacted Josh. Josh was the most responsive out of the three, and they allow you to bring whatever you want. You can bring any kind of list. Depending on the person that you get, you will receive someone that is either more competitively inclined or less. If you want to play the most competitive game, it'll be Scary, and he's only there on a Tuesday, Wednesday. He's the competitive player. Josh is kind of middle ground, and then what I kind of got from it was that Luca, Matt, and especially Dave, who hasn't played in a while, not particularly the most competitive players. They just play for fun. So they have people set up there, and if you request something specifically, and then you book in on that day, they can accommodate for you. But I kind of told them before they requested anything that I was bringing stuff for every kind of measure. I wasn't restricted by the army because I was taking 2 different lists. So I kind of gave myself a fallback in case one didn't work. And I knew that there was going to be a data slate before I went on anyway. I just didn't know when. So I gave myself that fallback. And then, you can basically do whatever you want. As for Scary, he also is really open to playing anything, and he will match you. I think in kind of the way that I would do for someone that comes to the studio. They would send me the list first, and it kind of seems like that gives you the option to tailor, but it's actually the opposite. You kind of tailor yourself down so that if anything, they have more of a chance to win. It makes good content, and you make the closest kind of list possible so that it's a really close game and it's not going to be a blowout, and it makes a longer viewing experience, which is just more content for everyone involved. So no preference, but Scary's communication leading up to it wasn't the greatest. I gave everyone as many reminders as I could, but everyone's so busy. They get a lot of different people talking to them at all different times. And depending on who you are, they probably won't respond to you as much. Just fun. That's just how a business works, which was the case for when I went to go and see Play On. So the deal with Play On is I had messaged them maybe like 6 months in advance. Eventually, after enough hard work and effort, I got through to TAC. I had an interview over the phone. And after a while, I think TAC kind of realized that, although I am a bit crazy, I'm not a crazy person. And he was like, okay, this guy, he has his painted models. He's a presenter. He fulfills the qualifications to come onto the channel and film a battle report. So they kind of, put me through an interview process, so to speak. Leading up to the actual day, though, it was only about 3 or 4 days before where I gave them a couple more reminders that they actually triple booked me. So that they were supposed to have me on a Friday. They triple booked out because they had all these sponsored things and new events that were coming up, loads of releases for loads of different things, because they do a lot more than just 40K. And so they triple booked a Friday. They actually finished on the Friday, I think around midnight. And then TAC and Tycho were nice enough to come in on a Saturday, and they don't normally film on a weekend. And so they allowed me to come in on a Saturday because they knew that I was only there for 3 days. And I met Tycho and I played a game against him, and TAC was there, and their editor was there as well, like they're one of their film people. And I played for about 10 hours. Like we filmed a long, lengthy video. They have a lot of background processes. And then I actually went back to my hotel and came back the next day to go and film all of the like cinematic stuff. So like the shots for the armies, shots for each unit, et cetera, et cetera. All the like the fancy stuff that you see on intros and things, that was actually filmed a day after. And I flew out on that day, on the Sunday. So it was kind of like 2 days of filming. But truth be told, I actually booked 3 days in Vancouver, which I didn't need to do. I had originally like kind of like a connecting flight from Toronto through Vancouver back home to Sydney, and I actually extended the stay and booked three nights in Vancouver, not knowing whether they could actually fill me in or not. They had not confirmed if I was going to get on the channel or not. I literally just took the risk and just paid a little bit of extra to see Vancouver. It was pricey, but it meant that even if they said no, I could just wander the streets for like 3 days, see all the different things in Vancouver. And it worked out really well because they ended up saying yes. They made the time for me, which was really generous, really, really nice of them. And I got a day to explore the town and did all the fun stuff, Suspension Bridge, seeing the sites. I did a tour. Hilariously as well, as for some backstory, the one day that I had, aside from visiting the Play On studio, I did this tour on like a tour bus around the city. And I met up with this guy who was probably about 50, this American guy that was on holidays with all of his friends. And all of his friends on that day had gone up to Whistler to go skiing. And he'd had knee surgery, so he couldn't go. And he was just wandering the town, doing a tour, etc. And we kind of got to know each other throughout the day. And he was like, hey, you want to come out to dinner? And so I went out to dinner with him and like 5 other American dudes, all of them about 50. And spoiler alert, I'm not there yet. I'm a little bit younger than 50. So I had dinner with like my 5 or 6 dads, and they paid for my meal, which was really nice. So it was like the most surreal experience. I went out, had a great time, had dinner with all my dads, and then the next day I woke up bright and early, caught the train, and I went to go see Play On. We filmed for like 10 hours, went back the next day, had fried chicken, pretty good. And TAC as well. I met Mubin on the second day, and TAC and Mubin took me out to Korean barbecue, I think it was. So it was great. It was a lot of food that I couldn't normally eat because, spoiler alert, a lot of them are also gluten-free. Little known knowledge, TAC and also Tycho are gluten-free. So it worked out really well. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. You're in good company, in good hands. That took care of you.
It was
So
great.
amazing. Yeah. So between I guess all the food adventures and stuff like that. So amazing. I was going to ask. So you talked. I guess was there anything? So obviously you're someone who's created content for a while. Obviously you have your Barnyard Jack. You do your battle reports and stuff like that. And what you illustrated before was a very similar process. So I think when you talked about how lists are tailored to fit the situation, I know very publicly Tabletop Titans do a very similar thing. They say, look, we say the lists are tailored and stuff like that. So I guess, was there anything that process-based or behind the scenes that you saw these content creators do that was different to what you'd done yourself? Like, was there a different process or methodology or something like, oh, that's an interesting way to do it, and maybe you've learned from, or you think, oh, this is a bit weird, why they do this?
Okay, well, look, I'm a pretty honest guy, and I will be brutally honest. So sorry, channels in advance. But they're not exactly the most organized when it comes to making games, in the sense that they have so many models that they they spend all of their time and effort lining up the game, lining up even terrain, making it look good and fit the theme, more so than the army. So I think that they play enough games to the point where, myself included, we don't really play something unless you kind of are really engaged on something at like a specific time. Like, I'm really into demons at the moment and playing them competitively. If not, they kind of just make a list that would look good on camera. So they make the list pretty much on the day. And a lot of the time it is something that they have done before. For example, when I went to play on, Tycho built his list as I entered. Like, I basically said hello, shook his hand. I was like, I have Eldar and demons. What would you like? They said, let's see what they each look like. We'll see what we go with. And they decided they don't really get Eldar on the channel very much. And so Eldar it was, whereas they do get demons a fair bit more. And so to have someone that is a presenter that knows Eldar quite well, and has played Eldar for a long time, someone that they never really see, they took their chance and they were like, yeah, let's put Eldar on stream or on camera. And Tycho literally, as he was putting the terrain on the table, built his army list. So it's not like the most prepared thing in terms of the matchups. I think that overall they kind of just focus on it not being too much of a blowout. Like, you wouldn't put, let's say, 30 fire dragons into a knight's army. That would just be, oh, I win, As long as it's like a fair and kind of balanced game with different things going on, then you have a good time. Yeah.
Yeah, so talking about having a good time and like making sure the list's balanced and stuff like that, can you spoil anything? Was anything faked? Did you like make sure you didn't roll 666s in a row, or was it all natural results the whole way through for all your games?
All right. Now we get into the saucy questions. So for all three channels, Scary is definitely the most honest. He would never fake anything. But for all three channels, none of the dice rolls are faked. Nothing is faked. Nothing in terms of the actual game is faked. I think that the only thing that might be faked really is if, for example, let's say in my turn, I wanted to make a charge roll. I made the charge roll and then I realized, oh crap, his unit has fights first. I don't want to make the charge roll. They would very nicely be like, do you want to take this back? Let's just rewind a bit. And then we'll just say, I'm not making a charge roll. I know they have fights first. That would be something that, is faked in a way, because it would keep the game alive a bit longer and, be a bit more genuine. But that's just that's not really like faking it. That's more or less just playing a casual game with your mates. Like, if you were to make a charge move in a casual game and then someone afterwards goes, oh, actually, mate, you know that they have fights first, then you would not charge them in the first place. Not that happened in my game. That's not a direct spoiler. It's just an idea off the top of my head, But if you make a mistake, they very kindly allow you to take it back. Or like if you move in a certain location, you are allowed to do some take backsies and things like that. So that in a way is faked. And also the only other thing I can say is obviously for PlayOn, how they do their interview segments where they go, oh my gosh, I really hope he doesn't make his charge, or wow, this left flank is looking really bad. I hope in the next turn I get this. They play the whole battle round and then they record themselves reacting to each thing. So everyone in the room kind of like jots down or notes or like mentally remembers the things that have happened in each order. And then you sit in the side and you give a recollection of what happened. So you in this way, you kind of play the turn and you are more genuine, both on the camera and with your moves, and you kind of know what you're doing. It's still really hard to play on camera. Like you kind of just make impulse decisions, especially when you're on the clock to kind of finish by a certain time frame, which is, I feel like is a lot of the problem that I had when playing games on camera. I was so focused on everyone else, like all the cameras and lights and being a presenter and meeting all other people, that it's so hard to play a game of 40K at the same time and actually concentrate on what you're doing. But yeah, the only thing that would be faked is their reaction to what would happen in the turn. And I think that just makes them better actors and better entertainers anyway. So
sure, yeah, that makes sense. Jack, what are you talking about? So it's so hard being on camera. What do you do again, casually? Obviously, it's a different environment.
Look,
right?
if it's my own content and I'm used to the setup and I'm like doing stuff, that's fine. Even coming back now, when I got back, I actually redid a lot of the studio. I remade the desk here. I wiped our computer that we use for streams, and that has caused so many issues. The stream deck is broken down, my camera's broke down, my microphone's broke down. Everything has needed so much fixing, so much so that we did a stream yesterday, and when I got home as well, I realized that the modem for the studio had been struck by lightning. So no internet for like 6 days. So I've had to make edited battle reports on the side, which is something I haven't done for 3 years. It's been a whole thing. But yeah, everything has kind of been broken down. And the stream that we played yesterday, it was chopped up so much by all of these problems. Literally, it was missing a beginning. It was missing an outro. I can't even put it up on YouTube anymore. We basically just played a game exclusively for the people that were watching, and that's never going to exist on YouTube. So, when you're doing things like that and you're trying to like use a stream deck or focus on the camera angle that you're looking at, or like how if I roll like 3 of these dice and I pass them all, is that going to make for a really exciting piece of content? I think that's the thing that goes through my mind. Like obviously cheating is the worst thing I can think of. Unintentionally, of course, like trying to remember everything that I need to play the game and not cheat, because then everyone would know in the comments. All the comments would be filled with things like, oh, you misplayed this rule, or you can't do this, or how could you not know this if you've been playing for 13 years? You have to like go back. You can't go back on all the things that you've said once you've said them on camera. So, a lot of this was going through my mind as I was playing these games. Not to give excuses as to why I either won or lost, but just as a behind the scenes kind of thing. It's a lot. It's a lot more than just playing a game at like at your friend's place. People say that playing 3 games, if not 5 games over the weekend is a lot. But in those scenarios, you're literally just hyper focusing on the table and your rolls. Imagine trying to do that and interact with someone over the table and have like interactive like content and fun conversation, not just like your turn, mate. And that's it. That is very boring. So it's a lot to think about. Yeah,
exactly. It's definitely different, and like as you said, playing for the camera and trying to, I guess, be very, expressive about things and making sure it's good content so people do watch it and enjoy it is obviously something very different. So was there any big lessons learned, takeaways that you've had? So while you were there, was there something that you learned that, oh, I'm going to do that while I incorporate into my own videos and stuff like that? So look, I know you said you redid the studio, but I wasn't sure if that's a direct correlation.
Yes, absolutely. So I think the things I picked up mostly in terms of production quality were from PlayOn. Their production quality, as everyone knows, is really good on a few different instances, right? So I use a smoke machine for some of my shots of models, and it's actually a homemade smoke machine. My neighbor, who is retired, builds model boats, and he was kind enough to build me a smoke machine which uses glycerin. Now, if you want to get into making your own smoke for your own videos, smoke machines that use glycerin, they're kind of like a vape pen. Like they're not exactly the most healthy thing to constantly breathe in. And also they set off smoke alarms. They create like a layer of residue on everything that they touch. So it's not exactly the best device to use. The thing that I learned from PlayOn, or at least one of them, is that they use a reptile humidifier. So this is like a big piece of, like, it's fairly cheap, but it's a big piece of equipment that is essentially, it heats water into like a valve, and then they just have two big tubes that come off of this and create a bunch of steam. And steam is basically smoke. It looks just as good, and that's how they get all their shots for all of their amazing stuff. But it's made of water. It makes things wet, but it doesn't, create a layer of grossness all over your stuff, all over your models and all over your setup. So I've got a humidifier now, and I'll be swapping over to that. The other thing that I learned that, and thank you, PlayOn, I stole this bit of information. Your overhead camera, you don't typically want it directly overhead on a 90-degree angle, because then the things that you're looking at, it's like more clear for the perspective of like a very competitive game. Like if everyone watching is intently watching and you know what each unit is and where they're going to go, I think that the 90-degree angle might be a bit better. But they actually tilt their camera ever so slightly downwards so that it's isometric. And the reason for this is so that you can see a bit of depth to the models. For example, if you have a Great and Clean one, Scar Brand, whatever, you'll actually see more of the color. You'll see more of what they are and where they are on the table. And it makes for a better viewing experience in terms of the things that are going to be moving and where they might move or where they have moved. In terms of like buildings, it makes things a little bit harder to see if something's underneath a building. But overall, it looks nicer. So I have angled my camera to be isometric. Thank you, PlayOn. They didn't really give me permission to steal that one, but I kind of did.
No patent pending. Quick patent pending.
Copyright. Copyright. And then the other thing that I learned from them is that they use a lot of lighting. The advantage that they have over me, especially, other than experience and years of experience in the business, is that they have a fair few amount of people with the background in film and video and things like that. So they know lighting and they know how to like light a shot with like key lights, and they use very specific lights. So I did note down all of the lights that they use and where they got them from. And I will hopefully be getting some of those myself. As you can see here, like, I mean, their lighting is just like better than anyone else's on the internet. And their use of explosions, things like that. They even have flickering tea lights, which are not just like a tiny little candle. Like it's a proper big light. Like it's a big thing that they use, and they put it behind things like buildings or on the other side of an explosion. And these explosions are 3D printed in a way where they're clear perspex, and then they're painted. So they give that impression of a light through the explosion so that when you put the flickering tea light behind them, they look like the explosion is flickering. And then they use camera work to kind of slow that down so it looks like multiple explosions that are going off in the background. Things like that are just stuff that you would learn over, so many years in the business, and I would have never thought to do. But now that I've seen a lot of the behind the scenes, I'm going to be adapting a fair few amount of their techniques into my own videos. But as for the mini wargaming side, I think that the mini wargaming side, because I've been doing it for 16 years, their side is less technical, like on the presenter side. It's more on the genuine. Not to hate on Play On, but the vibe that I got from them was very organized in terms of business. Their main focus was business, and it was about creating views, creating content, making that presenter experience. Whereas the vibe I got from Mini Wargaming is that they are the most genuine hobbyists on the planet. Like that's Dave's brand, is being genuine. And I can safely say, without a doubt, the Mini Wargaming people are far more genuine behind the camera than the people on Play On. Not that the people on Play On are not genuine. They are very genuine, and they're all really nice. But the people at Mini Wargaming, I had a lot more of a fun time with. They are the most genuine people on the planet for wargaming. They're just nice. So
that's interesting you mentioned that. And I think maybe that's part of, I guess, the business model per se for things like Mini Wargaming. Also, they produce a quantity of content, and their personalities are the things that shine through probably the most, and like the guests and stuff like that. So maybe providing that user experience, whereas Play on Tabletop, look, it's a very edited, highly produced battle report that people consume and they love those consistent, I guess, hosts per se, and that being mean, the guest doesn't matter maybe per se as much. So, but it's interesting to hear like how you found the different things. And
I think that's a amount of like, there's more banter that comes from Mini Wargaming than there is from Play On. Like Play On, if anything is going to be staged, I think it would be some kind of banter. Not that they did any of that with me. None of it was staged, and I can't speak to any other guests that have been on. But in terms of what I did with them, none of that was staged. But if something was to be staged, I would probably say it would be that. Like when I watch Play On videos, and not to hate on Nick, because I'm sure that Nick is really nice, and I know that he's a loving family guy. But you can see, if you have a keen eye, you can see in the Play On videos that they really up themselves for camera. And then immediately, as soon as the camera is off, they're kind of like, oh, all right, that took a lot of energy out of me. And you can't keep that up all day. Whereas the Mini Wargaming people don't have as much energy, but they are very natural. They're very genuine. They don't film a segment and go, all this stuff's happening. And then, if you don't cut the camera perfectly, and, on Play On, that sometimes they leave that camera on just a little bit too long, and you can just see in their eyes as they kind of just go, and they just like are so tired. Whereas the people at Mini Wargaming, it's more casual content, but when you play with them, you're having the most fun time. I was more stressed playing with Play On than I was at Mini Wargaming. They just play for fun. They make content out of it, but the fun is the absolute key aspect, more so than the business model.
Yeah, for sure. And I think also, I think you can always excuse someone who's producing content and maybe that's out to midnight the night before, and maybe on their day off from work, they have to come in the next day and produce more stuff. So without giving excuses and stuff like that, but maybe that also maybe played into
They work really hard.
Yeah.
I'm not hating on them in any way. They do a lot of work. I mean, literally, when I went there, Tack was on his 30th day straight.
Insane. And like, that's the business though, right? Like, so my understanding is they have like a history in film and TV making or movie making. So hence why the shots and stuff are like so amazing and incredible, and the editing is at that peak level. So what about Scary? So what about Mr. Darkkin himself? What did you get to learn from him?
I'd say he's the tactician. I learned a lot of tactics from him. I learned a lot of tactics from him, but I also learned how to treat an audience. I think that he is the most in tune with his audience. PlayOn and Miniwargaming, they produce a lot of content, but due to their size, they don't really interact too much with their audience, like one-on-one. They might have their own Discord, and they might have members and stuff that they interact with, but it's more or less like you'll send a message and they'll reply a week later. Whereas Scary replies to everyone. I would say because of his size on YouTube, he has the opportunity, and he does, to reply to everyone. He is the most genuine, and the most like loving and caring. If you ask him a question, will reply. So when I had that car ride with him, and I asked him, and I had dinner with him as well, I asked him loads of questions about how to treat an audience, how to be in tune with your audience, and how to respond to comments, whether they're mean comments, whether they're nice comments, and how to give people advice. And he gave me a lot of helpful information on that. Before I left to go to Canada, I told you that I had that interview with TAC, and I spoke a lot about what makes this hobby for me and what makes it so genuine, and the reason I do it. And I think a lot of the reason why I continue on YouTube is to have interactions with fans. Like when I started because why not? But when I continue, it's because the alternative is like, why should I stop? Like, why would I stop? Because at this point, now that I've had all the interactions with everyone and they're so genuine, that's the reason that I keep going. That's the reason I want to keep going. And that's where all of the drive comes from. And I think it's the same for someone like Scary. And as I said before I left, I had that interview with TAC. And about a couple of days later, or a week later, I had one of my subscribers talk to me through the phone, and he lives in Sweden. And it was literally the same interview, but with the roles flipped. And he wanted to come and see me in Australia and play on my channel because he finds me so genuine. And to have someone from Sweden interact with you and watch all of your content and want to literally fly around the world just to come and see you and play on the content and the community that you've built and the stuff that you've created is insane. It was so surreal to have an interview and then immediately have the flip side of that interview, and then fly away to go and interact with all these people that I've met, that I haven't met before, that I've known for like 16 years. So yeah, he was a tactician, but also he's the one that you want to talk to if you want to, interact with people. If you want to get to know the people in your community and know how to play with people and even deal with people that aren't so friendly, Scar is the guy to talk to.
What a man. What a man. I love him more and more every time I hear more great things about him. So that's fantastic and great to hear. And I'm sure when your Swedish subscriber comes over, just make sure you just bring in that smell of fish. Otherwise, your studio might stink for a while. But otherwise, I'm sure.
Let's hope not. He can have some Vegemite instead.
There we go. I
did take Vegemite and Tim Tams.
There you go. Have they said it's pretty common for them? Like, oh yeah, I've tried this before, or no?
No. Well, for the Miniwargaming people, they actually have a big map. They have a gigantic map in the bunker, and when you go there, you get to put a pin in the map, like from where you're from. And surprisingly, there were 7 people that had come from New Zealand, and only 4 from Australia. I was like, how is this even a thing? How is this possible? I was the 5th person to go there from Australia, and everyone bar one was from Sydney. So, but they had people from like Central Africa. They had some very obscure places on their map. And so they've seen a lot of things. They've tried a lot of things. I'm certain that they've had it before, but I took them and I took the PlayOn guys a jar of Vegemite each. Sadly, all the people at the PlayOn studio are gluten-free and it contains gluten. So not even I could have the Vegemite. I just gave them a jar that no one could eat. And the same goes for Tim Tams, but luckily I saved a packet of gluten-free Tim Tams in my luggage for 5 weeks. Didn't break it, kept it real safe alongside the minis, took them all the way there, and we had a Tim Tam, which was nice. And they got to experience that. But lo and behold, in Canada, they have Tim Tams everywhere. Like, I didn't know that. They have Tim Tams in like a chemist.
That's strange. That's weird.
But they don't have Vegemite, so they
gave him something unique. Gave him something unique at least. I guess while you were there, so obviously you talked previously about like Tim Hortons and stuff like that. Did you get to try some of Tim Hortons and the stereotypical Canadian cuisine of poutine?
Yes, I did. And I see your name over there is Poutine Enjoyer. Have you had poutine before? Before I talk about it, have you had poutine? Oh.
Yeah, sorry. I accidentally pressed the wrong shortcut. Yes, I have had poutine, and I loved it. I was a big fan. So,
okay.
Yeah.
I had it, and I was not a big fan. I spoke about it on stream when I came back, but man, poutine was not great for me. For all that don't know, it's like the traditional poutine is chips, gravy, and cheese curds, and the cheese curds tasted like cheese, just not as good for me. And then like the gravy was like everywhere. Like it's basically swimming in gravy. It's like a soup, but the soup is gravy, and then you have soggy chips in there, and then cheese curds. You know, it's
I
like
don't
a
know what
broth.
you couldn't love at that. Obviously, I'm a big guy. I like my food, so maybe that's why I loved it. Then I remember when I was going through Montreal, like I drove by like a kebab shop, and they had like a halal snack pack with a poutine equivalent. I was like, oh my god, I so want to try it. I never got the chance to, but I guess
there's a kebab place near me, and they make fantastic kebabs and pides. And the only thing I could think about the entire time that I was in Montreal was how bad poutine was in comparison to the HSPs that I have back home in Sydney. Because it's the same thing. It's like it's chips and meat and some sauces, but here they drizzle them over the top. You know, it's a bit of flavor. It's not like a soup. I'm not a big sauce person, and I don't like to waste food. If I get given something, I eat all of it. And when I was given that meal in the restaurant, I could not eat it. I literally ate about half of it, and I was like, I can't finish it. It's just too much gravy. So I'm not a poutine enjoyer.
Well, how about Tim Hortons coffee? Well, Tim Hortons as a whole, did you enjoy it, or was it was fine?
So as for Tim Hortons, I'm not a big coffee drinker. Don't like coffee. Don't like tea either. I'm a weirdo. I know. How do I survive? But I had hot chocolate while I was there, which was great because it was freezing cold. Like not the hot chocolate, the surroundings. And the hot chocolate that they have is specifically gluten-free, which, as I said, for like McDonald's and stuff like that, a lot of their places actually specify, whereas pretty much everywhere in Australia doesn't specify. They just don't care. And so it was nice because I actually was able to drink a hot chocolate that I knew wouldn't make me sick. And even more so, they had caramel hot chocolates that were really good. So that was fantastic. But I will say, when I went to the Macca's, I only went there like one time. But when I went there, the guy I was with, I was ordering like a meal, and I was like, yeah, thick shake. I'll get a thick shake. What size should I get? Large. I always get large. Large is fine. I finish a large here in Australia. No, large is like 2 liters. Large is like large. We're talking like
supersize me large.
Like it literally took me 2 days to finish it. I drank like a liter, and then I took it home, put it in the fridge, and I had like 3 large thick shakes for the price of one. And they also have free refills there. It's like the States. They have free refills, and you can just like ask in a bar to get a free refill. A lady came by and filled up my Coke again, and I was like, do I have to pay for this? And she's like, no, it's free refills. I was like, oh my God, this is great. I've never had this in my life,
Yeah.
But what sucks is the tax, because they have like a $2 tax, and then they have like a $3 tax after that for the same meal, even if the waitress just like brings the food to the table. You have to pay like $5 in tax and then a 15% tip on top of that. And when I went there, the transfer rate was 0.85 Australian dollars, like to their dollar kind of thing. So it was like another 15% or something like that. We had like a pasta on the main strip in Quebec City, and it was like $24. It became $25, 50 or something because it was gluten-free pasta. She charged like a Coke to my order that wasn't mine. It was like my friend's. An extra $3.50 for that, $5 of taxes, 15% for tips, and then 15% transfer. It was like $50 for a pasta that wasn't even that big. Like I could get 4 pastas in Australia for the same price, and they would be just as good. So price-wise, very unimpressed, Canada. And the food was, I would say, okay. Warhammer, great. Food, okay. Prices, terrible.
Oh, there you go. So the whole trio. Look. It's what it is. So each their own. Did you try smoked meats while you're in Montreal, or no?
No, I didn't. I didn't get around to doing any of the smoked meats or cheeses. Yeah, I had
Right.
some
Next time.
cheeses and things, and like some smoked meats, and I had 2 crepes, which was nice.
There you go.
But yeah, not a lot of cultural food. The people I was staying with were from France, so I was speaking French, like French, not Quebecois French. And
proper French. Yeah, exactly. So I just wanted to backtrack a little bit. So you talked about Vancouver, and you were in a studio for 10 hours for the Play on Tabletop thing. So, like, obviously, most games of Warhammer, I know your own stream stuff takes only 3.5, 4 hours. Like, if you're chilling and stuff, like maybe a 4-hour game was probably the most casual thing. How does a game take 10 hours to do? Like, what's that process look like, or why does it take so long?
Okay, well, it wasn't. I'm just spouting numbers off the top of my head, so I don't know exactly how long it was. I'm guessing it was around 10. I think I arrived maybe around 9:30, and when I went home around 8, 7, can't remember, something like that in the evening. But obviously that encompasses everything. Like I arrived, we had a bit of a discussion. We set up a table. We spoke about lists. They gave me the rundown on how to play on their channel, what goes where, how you would like roll dice or like any specific scenario, the policies and codes for, do you swear? Obviously, no, you can't say anything political, blah, blah, blah. You got to have the whole spiel. Even though I am a presenter myself and I know most of it, they still have to give you the spiel just to be certain that you're not going to do anything stupid. It's the first time that they've met you in person, and they're going to put you on their prized possession, seen by hundreds of thousands of people. It's how they make revenue. So they have to give you the spiel. And then after that, it does take a while. You got to move each and every individual piece. The way that they play the game, at least at Play On, is that when you move models, they sometimes ask you to pick that model up again and then place it back down just for the camera so that they can have that shot of the model being placed. A lot of extra shots go into it here and there. They take a script along the way, taking notes of what might be important so that when they have all of the footage, the person that does the voiceover, like JT or Tycho, they can then write their script, read and narrate their videos. So a lot of extra detailing goes into it. And then in between each turn, you have to kind of move from one location over to another where there are other cameras, and you do your interviews and you kind of talk about what happened in the turn and how you want to move forward and your points and things like that. They take a lot of footage behind the scenes just as backups. So whether it makes the final cut or not, they are a full production team, and it takes, from what I heard, I think about 60 hours to make one video. So they have, probably 20, 25 hours worth of footage that they have randomly just from the 10 hours that are there, because they take it from multiple camera shots and splice them together. They have all of the individual shots of you placing and lifting and moving models. They have their top-down shot. they have all of the individual shots that I did the next day as well about like what your models look like that they use on the side, their little overlays and things, or like cinematic shots that they use at the beginning or the end. Those types of things take substantially longer than you would think. Like when I used to edit battle reports myself and film them, it took me like 6, 7, 8 hours just to film it, let alone edit. And even now, it takes me probably 3 to 4 hours to film a battle report, which is just like mainly hand cam, like hand cam footage that I can then edit. And I have like a top-down camera that goes at the same time, and I can splice them together. They have so many different shots that they put together. It just takes a long time. And then you have lunch in between, and then, maybe some dinner as well, and then you go home. So all up in terms of the just playing the game, you're probably only playing for like 2.5 hours.
Yeah,
and then the rest is basically filming, eating, moving models around, just for better shots.
Yeah, that makes sense. And like the time adds up, right? Nice and easily there. Like I can understand why it would take 10 hours to do something like that. So I guess if someone wanted to recreate the trip, like someone was going over to Canada, whether to go do some like French teaching or for actual holiday and stuff like that. If you were to recreate the trip, what advice would you give for someone who wanted to maybe follow in the footsteps of going to Miniwargaming and going, or just I would say go to Miniwargaming, because unfortunately not everyone can guarantee play on tabletop. What advice would you give?
Okay. Well, when I went to play on, I wouldn't advise you to do it the way I did, but I did kind of spam them first to be able to get a response, because there's a lot of people that message them. I don't advise you do that. I would advise sending them an email with lots of time in advance, maybe like a year, so that they can get back to you on it, and just send them an update being like, hey, just updating you, no rush. This is my email if you are trying to do something like that. I just had limited time. If you want to go to Miniwargaming, definitely email Josh, and he is very, very responsive, and they set everything up for you. The way that you get to Miniwargaming once you land in Toronto Airport, the way I did it and the way that they recommend, is that you take the Niagara Airbus, which is somewhat pricey. It's not actually too bad. You take the Niagara Airbus return, and it's about 2.5, 3 hours to take you down to Welland. And then when you're ready, you go back up again. And unless you want to hire a car, in which case you can do that. And then you can go and see some other sites like Niagara Falls, which is about 30 minutes away by car. There's not a lot of bus and there's no trains. So if you want to go see Niagara, then it's about an hour to an hour and 10 minutes, depending on the time that you go from the bunker to Niagara Falls. So if you want to go do that, plan it in advance. And if you're going to the bunker, I would say plan your days accordingly and have stuff to do. Because unfortunately for the bunker itself is fantastic, but the surroundings of the bunker, not so great, not so hot. It's not the greatest area, and there's also not much to do. There's very little in terms of restaurants. There's no attractions. It's just in a suburb. And all of the gaming people obviously go home after filming. They work there full time. So at like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock even, they go home. After that, you're kind of stuck on your own. It's just a hotel room. So for someone like myself, it was really fortunate, because when I arrived, I was hanging out with Scary, and Scary kind of like, I arrived, I had the evening to talk with Josh. I was tired. I went to bed probably around like 8 o'clock. And then in the next morning, Scary had arrived. He arrived at like midnight, and I woke up, I met him. I spent the whole day recording stuff with him. I recorded with Josh. I recorded with Scary. We went to like lunch or something like that. Or I could hang out with people. There was stuff for me to do every day. The game that I played with Scary after Niagara Falls finished at midnight. So I was filming until late. And then like the next day, I had to go to bed really early to get up to leave on the Airbus to go to the to the airport again. If you don't have anything planned, it will probably be quite boring. Because once you have filmed your game, I was lucky enough to get in 2 games with them, which is what I had said originally. It's what I had wanted. That's why I took 2 armies. I took 2 armies for playing with them. I took 2 armies to play with the people that I was living with in Montreal, and also for a bit of differentiation for the people that I versed in Montreal because I was there for a month. And also I took 2 armies on the gamble that I don't know which one Play on Tabletop would want. You know, like if I had gotten there and said I only brought demons, they would have been like, you know, cool, but we don't want demons. So yeah, plan in advance and make sure that you know what you're doing. And go on the day that Scary is there, because he's awesome.
There you go. Life of us. Just go on a Tuesday or Wednesday or when Scary is there, and then you'll have a great time. But I'm sure it will be a great trip otherwise, depending on your expectations.
Yeah.
So
Book
that's
the
fantastic.
Airbus and allow a lot of extra time.
There you go.
Because you got to get back to the airport in time for your flight, and the Airbus on the way back to the airport, the Airbus got stuck in traffic, and I was really lucky that my flight was like 4 or 5 hours after I left. So I probably would have missed my flight because it was like 3.5, 4 hours on the bus to get back.
Oh, don't we love travel and how all the delays and stuff can affect you? But we got there in the end, so it's all good. So as we wrap things up, Jack, so this has been fantastic, very insightful to hear about your Canadian ventures and all the behind-the-scenes stuff. So for people who maybe want to hear more or watch some of your stuff, like any final shout-outs or plugs that you have?
So for content that is coming out, I don't want to give any spoilers, but anyone that is kind of like listening along, I have no idea when any of the mini wargaming content is going to be coming out. I believe I filmed 3 games with them. One, I think, is going to go into the Mini Wargaming Vault. So if you are a Vault member, you'll be able to see all 3. One with Scary, one with Josh, one with Luca. I have no idea where they're going to put them. And then the game with Scary is already out. It is the best game that I recorded. If you are a competitive player, literally it is a must watch, and it is the best competitive game on the internet right now. I will say that hands down. So go to Scary's channel and check that out. As for the game for Play On, that will be coming out at 7 a.m. on the 5th of March. So if you want to see that and line it up, that is when it will be out. It is Death Guard versus Eldar. It is a very close game, and they have informed me that it is one of the best games that they have filmed. So if you want to stay tuned for that, it hopefully will be really good. I have not seen it yet myself, so I'm excited. And then as for myself, I have dabbled into edited battle reports as of late. We have a Learning with Luke battle report, which is like a more of an introductory game, and it is going to become a new series on the channel, Learning with Luke. Luke is, shout out to him, he's another YouTuber. His channel is called Beach's Scaly Beasts, and he basically just does work with reptiles, nothing to do with 40k in any way, but he, after a long hiatus, has come back to the hobby, and I will be teaching him live how to play 40k each week on a Thursday. So we have that coming out as well. We have Tranquil Tuesday streams every Tuesday and Spicy Saturday streams every Saturday. This Saturday, I will be having Jaden, the Viking himself, with his Space Wolves from the local community to come on as well. And we also have a few more edited battle reports on the way. I did a battle report recently that went up yesterday morning with Jordan for Demons versus Grey Knights, and that has been going really well if you want to see my demon list in action. And then we have another game on the way between Gene Stealer Colts, the lovely Taylor, the best GSC player in Australia. He took on a Wraithguard Eldar list of mine, and we had a lot of fun. So that game is on the way. But yeah, stay tuned for 3 streams a week and some edited battle reports as well. Very good.
Oh, just a little bit of content. So, you know, if you're just casually perusing YouTube, just a little bit there to watch.
Casually perusing, there's 4 channels or 5 channels to look through. Yeah, battle reports on battle reports. So there's heaps.
Just a couple hours of content. So just nice and easy. So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Just nice and easy. Taylor Hill's an amazing human being. So love that guy.
Taylor
so
is
great time.
fantastic. And the best part is that I call him Tay Tay. And at the moment, there's been a lot of Taylor Swift concerts here. So it's Tay Tay.
Yeah, nice. Very thematic. Very funny you mentioned that. I literally did something for work about the Taylor Swift tour. So very funny. But anyways, that's another separate topic. So yeah, that was great. And look, I know last year we had plans. I was going to be on stream, but unfortunately, life got in the way. And next time in Sydney, we'll definitely set something up. So it'll be
Absolutely.
great.
Absolutely. Of course. You're very welcome.
We'll set it all up. And I look forward to you maybe going to the UK as part of your French learning and then just doing the whole tabletop tactics, Vanguard tactics, and all that.
Oh, that would be a dream. I would love to go there. I think the next one on the bucket list, I think, is SN Studios. I know that they already know and love me. DC from SN, he knows me quite well. He's watched a lot of my content. And he hasn't welcomed me to the next No Retreat Legends quite yet. But I'm hoping that the next time they do a No Retreat Legends on their gigantic boat in the harbor in Gibraltar with all of the content creators, I will be there. So
well, fingers crossed. I'll be rooting for you.
In Spain. Spain, that's so sick. Let's go to Spain. We'll go see SN Studios. It's going to be good.
Well, isn't technically Gibraltar part of the UK? But I digress. That's a whole other little political.
I know that it's like right next to Spain. So
yeah. It's like one of those like lands, islands that's owned by UK, I believe, Gibraltar. But anyway, I digress. That's a whole other little thing. Like Puerto Rico is owned by US.
There.
Yeah. Anyways, that I digress. Doesn't matter. Or hopefully, fingers crossed that we can make something like that happen. If there was some Australian Idol X Factor voting I could do of text your vote in, I'll definitely be part of it.
Yeah, so let's go. That would be good. You got to represent Australia. I'm like one of the biggest battle report channels, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Easy. I'm sure you'll get there one day. So really, really appreciate your time, and it's been great to learn about, I guess, some of the behind the scene things about the Canadian content creation scene, and hearing about all your trip, it makes me very jealous. I just got back from an overseas holiday, and I'm already keen to go back again. So
it's so good. Travel's great, and it's my pleasure to be on as well. Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Thank you for being on. Thank you for everyone for listening.
No, yeah, absolutely. Look, you've done the plugs already. Just sign us out. We're all done. You've done this once or twice before. No, very good. So thank you very much everyone for listening. Hope you enjoyed this one, and talk to you all next time.